Hello students, today we are going to do So What Are You Anyway by Lawrence Hill. Lawrence Hill is a Canadian novelist, essayist and memoirist. He is best known for his 2013 Mansey Lectures, Blood, The Stuff of Life, his 2000 novel The Book of Negroes and his 2001 memoir Blackberry. Sweet Juice on Being Black and White in Canada. So let us start with the explanation of the chapter. So what are you anyway? Carol settles in seat 12A. Now what is this? She is traveling by air and the number of her seat is 12A. Beside the window, puts her doll on a vacant seat and snaps open her purse. So she's sitting beside the window and she puts her doll on a vacant. The seat she's sitting next to that, it's vacant, and she puts her doll on the seat and snaps open her purse. So she opens her purse that she has got. She holds up a mirror and then she's taken out a mirror and she holds up, okay. She looks into her own dark eyes, and what does she see? She looks at herself and she's got dark eyes. She's looking into them. She examines her handful of freckles. Now she has got on her face, she has got freckles and she's examining them. What is it? What are freckles? Freckles are a small patch of light brown color on skin. So which are tiny spots dotting her cheeks. Her cheeks for pimples but finds none. Now what is she doing? She is searching for pimples on her cheek but she does not find any. Only the clear complexion that her father calls milk chocolate. Now that is what her father calls her, that she has got a milk chocolate complexion. That is a colored girl, that means of mixed percentage, this is yours, I believe. A big man with a sunburnt face is holding her doll upside down. Now so there's a man there, a big man who has got a sunburnt face, whose face has been burnt due to the exposure, too much of exposure to the sun, and he holds her doll upside down. Now this is being very rude. Now we will come to know what his name is. And what does he say? This is yours, I believe. May I have her, please? Carol says. So Carol wants her doll back and she says, may I have her, please? She's being very polite. He turns the doll upside down. A black doll? I never saw such a thing. So he just looks at the doll and he says it's a black doll. Okay, again that's being rude. Okay, now that's being rude to her as she is very attached to her doll, and if somebody talks about the doll like that or holds it upside down, then she gets very disturbed. Her name's Amy. May I have her, please? So the name of the doll, she says, Carol says, is Amy. So again she asks, she requests politely, may I have her, please? Henry Norton, cries the man's wife. Give that doll back this instant. Now, so the name of this man who's being rude to Carol is Henry Norton. And the wife shouts that, give back the doll at this instant, this moment. Carol tucks the doll close to the window. The man sits beside Carol. Now he's sitting next to Carol. The first seat Carol is taken, that is next to the window, and after the window is this man Henry Norton sitting there. Okay, and the woman takes the aisle seat. Now what is an aisle seat? It is the long passage. What's an aisle? That's a long passage between rows of seat in a plane. So that's how they are sitting in the sequence. Carol is there first next to the window, then Norton is there, and then Henry Norton, and then his wife is sitting there. Don't mind him, the woman says, leaning towards Carol. By the way, I'm Betty Norton and he's my husband Henry. So when her husband misbehaves, so she says, don't mind, I'm sorry about it. And then she introduces herself that she's Betty Norton. Okay, and her husband name is Henry Norton. The man next to Carol hogs the armrest and he keeps looking at her. Now what is he doing? He's being impolite by not allowing her to some space on the common armrest. That armrest is supposed to be common for both of them, but he does not allow her, to keep her arm between them. And also by looking at her curiously, he's looking at her, like continuously, so she's feeling very uncomfortable. He's making her feel very uncomfortable. The stewardess passes by checking seat belts. That's the air hostess. Everything okay? She asks. May I go to the bathroom? Carol asks. So Carol, she wants to go to use the washroom. Do you think you could wait? We are about to take off. So what does the air hostess or the stewardess says? Because they are going to take off, so she says that please, can you wait? So Carol says okay. Carol looks out the window, sees the Toronto airport buildings fall behind, and wonders if her parents are watching. So where is she? Where is she taking off from? Toronto. Okay, and her parents have come to the airport to see her off. Say goodbye, she instructs Emmy. Who's Emmy now? It's her doll, the name of her doll. Waving the doll's hand, say goodbye to mom and dad. So she instructs Amy, say goodbye to mom and dad. The engine charges to life and the engine starts, that is of the plane. Her seat hums because it's just starting, so it starts shaking. They taxi down the runway. Now what is taxi? To move slowly along the ground before takeoff or after landing. Okay, that is, it's taxi is used as a verb here. She feels a hollowness in her stomach when they lift into the air. Now this happens because, like when the flight takes off, some of them have like, butterflies in their stomach, so she's like feeling uneasy. Her earplugs and stay that way until the plane levels out over pillows of cotton. Her earplugs and stay that way, like until the plane levels out. Plane levels out here means the plane stops rising after a while and continues to fly at the same height. Okay, over pillow of cotton. Why pillow of cotton? Because it goes smoothly. Then it's like it's on a pillow of cotton. That cotton is clouds. They burn as bright as the sun, so that is what the other side of the clouds look like. So other side of the cloud, it looks like they are burning in, sunlight. Excuse me, the man is talking to her. You can go to the bathroom now, So it is a man who was sitting next to Carol. Okay, so no, that's all right, Carol says. Traveling all alone, are you? So he's again inquiring from Carol. What is the name of this person? He's Henry Norton. Okay, so he says, are you traveling all alone? Carol swallows with difficulty. Now what do you mean by swallows? That makes a movement with her throat as though swallowing something, because she's nervous or frightened, like it's because of her, she's nervous. Where do you live? She asks. Dawn Mills. That is the place where Carol stays. Oh really, he says. Were you born there? Yes. And your parents? My mother was born in Chicago, and my father was born in Tuscan. And you're going to visit your grandfather. So he's asking questions after questions. Carol is innocent and does not even know the intentions, while the couple is disrespectful with the invasive questions. He's going on asking her questions one after the other. He's troubling her. She's feeling very uncomfortable. How do you come to know that she's uncomfortable? Because she's swallowing, she's feeling uncomfortable there. She nods. She says yes, she's going to her grandparents' house. And your parents let you travel alone? Now they're surprised. He's surprised. It's only an airplane ride, and I'm a big girl. So she thinks she's a big girl and she can travel all alone. She's quite confident there. The man lowers the back of his seat, chuckling. So he's like, laughing to himself. He whispers to his wife, no. Carol hears her whisper back. So his wife is saying, no. You ask her. Carol yawns, holds Amy's hand and goes to sleep. So the wife is saying, you ask her. Okay. And now Carol is feeling sleepy. She must have been tired, and she holds her doll's hand and she goes to sleep. The clinking of silverware wakens her, but she hears the man and woman talking about her. So she keeps her eyes shut. She's trying to hear what they're talking about her. I don't know, Henry, says the woman. Don't ask me, ask her. So she says, I don't know. If you want to know, you should be asking her. I'm kind of curious, he says. Aren't you? Carol can't make out the woman's answer, but then she hears her say, I just can't see. It's not fair to children. I don't mind them mixed up. But the world isn't ready for this. They are neither one thing nor the other. Henry, wake that child and see if she wants to eat. So she's expressing her views about being mixed up, you know. So she says, okay, wake her up and see if she wants to eat something over here because food is being served. When the man taps her shoulder, Carol opens her eyes, so he wakes her up. I have to go to the bathroom, she says. But they are going to serve the meal, the man says. So now the man doesn't want her to go. He's interrupting. Henry, if she wants out, let her out. She's only a child. So his wife says that he should not stop her. She's a child. If she wants to go, let her go. Carol grimaces. Now what is grimaces? Twist her face because she does not like what they said. She's very unhappy about it. She's not very comfortable with the way this man is behaving. She is definitely not a child. She's a young lady. That's what the man says. Once in the aisle, Carol realizes she had forgotten Amy. When she was going, she remembers that she left her doll. She never goes anywhere without her doll. Henry Norton hands her the doll. There you go. And don't fall out of the plane now. There's a big hole down by the toilet. Now, he again, he tries to scare her. He gives her the doll first, and then he says that don't fall out of the plane because there's a big hole down the toilet. You might fall into it. There is not, Carol says. There isn't any such thing. She heads down the aisle with an eye out just in case there is a hole after all. Now she's very firm and she says that there is no hole down the toilet. There isn't any such thing. She says there's nothing like that. And she goes down the aisle, but she keeps an eye, she still, this line tells you that still she's a child. She's not too old. Coming out of the toilet, Carol finds the stewardess. Excuse me, miss, could I sit somewhere else? Now she's feeling very uncomfortable with this couple out there, always talking to her, always telling her what to do, scaring her, asking her about her all the time. The woman frowns. Why? I don't like the window. Is that it? Is that the only reason? Well, yes, I'm sorry, but we don't have time to move you now. We are serving a meal. So what does the stewardess say? She says that she doesn't have a seat right now. She cannot change her seat right now because they're going to serve a meal. Ask me later if you like. So she says, if you want it, you can ask me later, but right now I cannot change your seat. Henry Norton is a bad character. He irritates Carol by treating her in a childlike manner. He's thrilled by teasing her. He makes her scared of traveling alone and falling through the toilet in the plane. He makes her uncomfortable with his inquisitiveness because, being a racist, he sees her as the other. Carol is uneasy that she wants to change her seat. After Carol has eaten and had her tray taken, the man says, what are you anyway? My wife and I were wondering. So he's asked her a question. What are you anyway? Carol blinks, sees the man's clear blue eyes and drops her head. What do you mean? She says. Now here, Carol blinks in confusion at the question, with the question word being what instead of who, as if she's an object and not a person. She stares at Henry's blue eyes and perhaps Sensing the difference between their appearance, she bends her head, trying to make out the implication behind the question. What is the reason he's saying this? You know, he says, you know, what are you? What race? Now, what do you mean by race here, children? Race means group that the humans can be divided into according to the color of their skin and their features. Now here Carol's mouth drops. Race? What is that? She doesn't understand. She's not understanding what he's saying. She yet senses that the man is asking a bad question. She wishes her mom and dad were there. They could tell what race meant. Now she's growing out of her childlike faith in adults and becoming aware of being seen as different. She's realizing that there is something different in me. Okay. Here Carol does not understand the implication of the question. What does it imply? And yet she senses that it is improper. There is something wrong in this, whatever he is asking. Okay. That doll of yours is black, Henry Norton says. So how does he try to explain it to her? That doll, it is black. Okay. That's a Negro doll. What is Negro? Negro is an old-fashioned and offensive word for a black person. Now we should not be using this word. Okay. So he says that's race, Negro. What's your race? So he's asking her what her race is. The question still confuses her. She's confused. She's wishing her parents were with her to handle the situation and explain to her what race actually means. Put it this way, the man says, what is your father? So he's asking her in different ways the same question. He's not got the answer. He's not satisfied with it. The question baffles her. Baffles means the question confuses her. What is her father? He's her dad. He's her dad, and every Sunday morning he makes pancakes for the whole family and lets Carol pour hot syrup on them, and afterwards he tells her stories. So she likes that part of him, Every Sunday he's there with her, cooking for her, telling her stories. So that's all she knows and she likes about him. Norton leans towards Carol. Say, you had a coloring book. What color would you make your dad? So he's questioning her again. What color, you would paint his skin. So he wants to know his skin type. I never use just one color. Okay, what color would you make his face? Brown. And your mother? Now here Henry is focusing on identifying Carol's parents as being of African or Chinese descent based on the colors she may use to color their faces in a drawing, whereas Carol sees her father as a person, not as the representative of our race, and would color her mother's face yellow or red because she fancied it and not as representing a race. Carol imagines a blank face. She's going blank. She's not confident anymore. She's not able to answer. Why are they asking such kind of questions? What would she put in her mother's face? She's thinking. She has to put something in there. Of course, she has to color it. She can't leave it blank. I don't know. She says, I don't know. Sure you do, Mrs. Norton says. Now even Mrs. Norton is pressing her. She also wants to know. How do you color your mother's face? Yellow. So Carol, she answered, I would do it yellow. Carol sees Mr. and Mrs. Norton look at each other. Is your mother Chinese? Mrs. Norton asks. So she's asking her if her mother is a Chinese. No, Carol says. She says that her mother is not a Chinese. Are you sure you would color her yellow? No. And now Carol is confused. She says no, for she was saying yes. What else might you color her? So what else colors? She might color her mother's face. What else? Carol feels ashamed at her stupidity. Now she is losing her confidence. Okay, she's feeling very stupid. She's not able to answer them. They're going on questioning her one after the other. A tear races down her cheek. Red, she says finally. Red, you can't color a face red. Is your mother white? Is she like me? Her face. Is it the same color as mine? Now, Mrs. Norton is not letting her be. She is making her very uncomfortable. Yes, she says, and your father's brown. Carol nods. She says, yes, my father is brown. When you say brown, do you mean he's a Negro? So they're asking her if he is a Negro. Okay. Yes, of course, her father is a Negro. If Mrs. Norton wanted to know all along if her dad was a Negro, why didn't she ask? So, I mean, yes, if they wanted to know, then why didn't she ask straight away, whether he was a Negro or not? So, you are mixed, Mrs. Norton says. You are a mulatto. She is upset because she does not know what the label implies, just as she does not know about race. She only knows they are trying to degrade her and her parents. Carol's lips quivers. Quivers means Carol's lips shook slightly because she was upset. What is a mulatto? Why do they keep asking her what she is? She isn't anything. So it's that it? You are a mulatto? You know what a mulatto is? Don't you? Haven't your parents taught you the word? Now they are asking her whether her parents have told Carol about it, that what or who a mulatto is. Approaching with a cart of juice, the stewardess looks up and smiles at Carol. That gives her a rush of courage. Leave me alone, she screams at Mrs. Norton. Carol draws courage from the stewardess, who smiles at her when she comes with the drinks. She screams at the Nortons to leave her alone. Passenger stays. Now the passenger who are sitting around, they start staring. The stewardess spills a drink. She's got a drink in her hand, and as Carol screams to let her be alone, she spills the drink. Mrs. Norton sits back hard in her seat, so she sits back. She stops whatever she's doing. Her hands raised, fingers spread. Carol sees people watching. So people are watching her. What is happening there? And Mrs. Norton, she sits back in her seat. Why do you keep asking me if my dad is Negro? Yes, he's Negro. Okay. Negro, Negro, Negro. She affirms loudly that her father is a Negro. Calm down, Mrs. Norton says, reaching over. Mrs. Norton treats Carol as if she has had a breakdown and put out her hand to calm her. Don't touch her, the stewardess says. Now, the stewardess asks her not to touch Carol because she knows the Nortons have instigated the situation. Who are these people? Someone says from across the aisle. Imagine talking to a child like that, and in 1970. Now, other passengers are upset that the Nortons could needle the child about her parentage in 1970 when racism was no longer an issue. So you can come to know that this chapter is written, the story is written in 1970. One woman sitting in front of Carol stands up and turns around. Would you like to come and sit with me, little girl? No, Carol shouts. I don't like all these questions. She keeps asking me how I would color my parents in a coloring book. Why do you keep asking me that? Now here Carol refuses, as Carol is now an adult, standing up for herself, all on her own. She reverses the table on Betty by asking her the same questions about how she would color her parents, and then letting her, she couldn't care less. Mrs. Norton pleads with Carol to stop. How would you like it if that happened to you? Carol says. So what are you anyway? What are your parents? How would you color them? Well, I don't care. I don't even care. How would you like to come and sit with me? The stewardess says, smiling. I will make you a special drink. Have you ever had a Shirley Temple? Now, the stewardess sympathizes with Carol and she offers Carol to sit next to her and offered her a special drink. Carol nods enthusiastically. Already she feels better. Clutching Amy, she passes by the Nortons who swing their legs to let her out. My God, Carol hears Mrs. Norton tell her husband, talk about sensitive. Norton Nortons continued to be racist in their attitude despite the response of the other passengers and the stewardess, as Betty Norton tells Henry that Carol had been oversensitive as if the fault was of Carol, without realizing they had been asking her racist questions. Now, here Carol thought being an adult meant being confident while on her own as on the flight. However, she learnt the hard way that being an adult also meant knowing people who are racist and being able to stand up for what she was as a person. So, from this story, you can understand that if something is happening, bad for you, with you, then you have to stand up for your right. You have to speak your mind. Unless and until you speak your mind, it is not going to stop. So, you have to raise your voice first if something bad is happening with you, or you have to share it with an elder person so that they can get the solution out of it. You could share it with anyone, isn't it? Thank you for watching. Like my video if you have understood and subscribe to my channel for the latest updates.